Baba Vanga, the famous Bulgarian seer, whose predictions intrigued the world for decades. He has made a series of prophecies that continue to capture the imagination of many. Among them, most shocking predictions is the related to NICOLÁS Maduro, the current president of Venezuela, according to Baba Vanga. Maduro's future will be marked by a series of immense challenges and changes. Dramatic, but what exact thing awaits him future to the Venezuelan leader? In this video we will explore in detail the 6 of Vanga's prophecies about Nicolás Maduro, unraveling the mysteries and the implications of each of them. Get ready for a fascinating journey through the world of predictions and discover how these prophecies can shape the future of Venezuela and the destiny of its president. Nicolás Maduro Moros is the president of Venezuela, a country located in northern South America. Mature, born on November 23, RD 1962, in Caracas, Venezuela. Before entering politics, worked as bus driver and got involved with Mature unions. Began his career politics in the Fifth Movement Republic MVR, founded by Hugo Chavez, and was one of the founding members of the party United Socialist Party of Venezuela PSUV. Served as Minister of Foreign Relations from 2006 to 2013, and later as Vice President of Venezuela. After the death of Chavez in 2013, Maduro assumed the presidency interim, and later that year won the presidential elections. During his Mature mandate, faced many challenges, including a severe economic crisis, inflation, food shortages, and medicines, and massive protests against their government. Its administration also faced criticism and sanctions international due to allegations of human rights violations and erosion of institutions. Democratic Maduro was re-elected in 2018 in a controversial election that many countries and organizations international they did not recognize it as just or free. Since then, has faced a growing internal opposition and a humanitarian crisis, increasingly deep in this country. Baba Vanga predicted that Nicolás Maduro would face tumultuous periods both politically and personally, and that his role as leader of Venezuela would bring big changes for the country. Besides, Baba Vanga predicted that Nicolás Maduro would face a major health scare in the future, but that would overcome this and live a long and resilient life. Baba Vanga, also known as the Nostradamus of the Balkans, are known for having predicted many important events throughout history, including the rise of IRIS terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001, and the Chernobyl disaster. But what happens with his predictions for Nicolás Mad? Let's take a closer look at some of the Baba Vanga's predictions for Nicolás Mature, and let's see how they compare to the real events prediction. 1. Crisis, economic devastating. Baba Vanga would have predicted that Venezuela would face an economic crisis even more serious under the leadership of Nicolás Maduro, leading to uncontrolled hyperinflation and collapse of basic services, causing an exodus of citizens in search of better living conditions. Uncontrolled hyperinflation would cause the value of the Venezuelan currency fell drastically, causing prices of essential goods and services were inaccessible to most of the population. With the increasing cost of life, many families would be forced to ration food, medicines, and other basic items, contributing to a major humanitarian crisis proportions. The economic crisis also would result in the collapse of the public services, including health, education, and safety in hospitals, would be left without medicines and equipment necessary. Schools would close for lack of resources, and crime would increase due to lack of police-appropriate deterioration of the basic services to intensify the population, especially of the most vulnerable, such as the elderly, children, and people with chronic diseases. Living conditions would become unsustainable, leading many to seek refuge in other countries, generating a regional migration crisis. The exodus, massive outpouring of citizens in search of better living conditions, would further aggravate the economic situation, since the departure of workers and professionals essential would weaken the ability of the country to recover from the crisis loss of human capital would be a blow devastating for sectors such as health, education, and industry that would already be further weakened. The brain drain would make it difficult to implement economic recovery policies and social peace, prolonging the suffering of the population and instability in the country. The prolonged economic crisis also would have political repercussions. Significant popular discontent with the management of NICOLÁS Maduro would increase, leading to protests and mass demonstrations. Repression violent by the government exacerbates social tension by creating a cycle of violence and instability. Internal and external pressure on Maduro why give up power intensify, resulting in a scenario of political uncertainty and possible changes in the government. The community international concerned about the humanitarian situation and human rights. Humans could intervene, complicating even more the political scenario. In between of this multifaceted crisis, Venezuela would face monumental challenges to rebuild its economy and society. Hyperinflation would have to be controlled through reforms. Drastic economic and restoration of basic services would require significant investments and support international reconstruction of the country would depend on a coordinated effort between the government, civil society, and the community international. The capacity of recover from the economic crisis, devastating predicted by Vanga, it would depend on good political leadership, solid, and the determination of the people. Venezuelan, to overcome the adversities. Prediction: two conflicts intense interns. Another prophecy of Vanga suggested that Maduro would face a series of uprisings and protests, violent throughout the country. These internal conflicts would be motivated by popular dissatisfaction with the government, resulting in a nation deeply divided and in constant clashes. The population suffering with the economic crisis and the deterioration of basic services would express his frustration and hopelessness. Through mass demonstrations, these protests would be frequently violently repressed by the forces of security, feeding a cycle of vicious resistance and repression. The popular dissatisfaction with the government. Maduro is not limited to issues economic, but would also include accusations of corruption, authoritarianism, and human rights violations. Widespread perception of a government illegitimate and disconnected from the needs of the people will further inflame tempers, leading to clashes frequent between protesters and forces governmental. These conflicts would turn the streets of the main Venezuelan cities in pitched battle scenarios, with barricades, fires, and clashes armed, increasing the climate of instability and fear. The division in the Venezuelan society would deepen, with entire communities polarized around to their political loyalties. Families and friends would meet on opposite sides from the barricades, increasing the tension, social and isolation between different groups. Violence and mistrust would become part of life everyday, making any attempt difficult of dialogue and reconciliation. This environment of constant confrontation would be detrimental. Even more, the already fragile social cohesion of country. The violent repression of the demonstrations for the government of Maduro would attract international condemnation and additional sanctions, further isolating Venezuela on the global stage. Human rights organizations would denounce the abuses committed by the security forces, increasing the pressure on the regime. The response: brutal government response to protests undermine any remaining legitimacy, making it increasingly difficult for mature maintain control without resorting to extreme authoritarian measures. Foreign intervention prediction: according to Vanga, the situation in Venezuela could attract attention and intervention of foreign powers. This intervention, possibly led by Western countries, could aggravate further political instability and social in the region. With the crisis, economic and internal conflicts in course, foreign nations would see the situation as a threat to the regional and global stability. Countries like the United States and members of the Europe and Union could feel the need to intervene, either through sanctions, support for the opposition, or even military intervention. the intervention foreigner could be motivated by several factors, including human rights, concerns the flow of refugees to countries' neighbors, and the stability of the regional economies. The international pressure on Maduro would increase, with foreign governments demanding political and economic reforms. Without, however, foreign intervention, it could also be seen as an interference in the internal affairs of Venezuela, exacerbating the feeling nationalist and resistance among Los Maduro supporters. Prediction: 4 natural disasters. The clairvoyant he predicted that during Maduro's term Venezuela would suffer from catastrophes, significant natural disasters such as earthquakes and floods. These disasters would worsen the humanitarian crisis in the country, making recovery even more difficult. Devastating earthquakes could cause large-scale destruction, collapsing buildings and vital infrastructure. Government response to these disasters would be criticized for her lack of preparation and resources, increasing the desperation of the population. Floods, on the other hand, would result in massive displacements and loss of property, leaving many homeless people without access to basic needs. Of communities affected by these natural disasters would be even more vulnerable to the economic crisis and lack of basic services, creating a cycle vicious of suffering and poverty. The government's inability to respond effectively to these catastrophes, natural, would increase distrust and discontent among the population, further weakening the Maduro regime. Prediction: controversial election. Another prediction of Baba Vanga was that Maduro would manage to be re-elected. Despite the adversities, this prophecy has already been concretized in 2018, when he was re-elected in a controversial election marked by aeons of fraud and lack of transparency. This re-election, seen by Nye as illegitimate, served to intensify the political polarization in the country and the international pressure on his government. Prediction: 6 economic renaissance. Despite all the difficulties, Baba Vanga predicted that Venezuela, under the leadership of Maduro or his successors, would eventually experience a renaissance economic. This recovery period would be marked by political reforms and significant economic benefits that restore confidence in the economy Venezuelan and would improve the conditions of life of the population. This prediction suggests that despite the challenges immense, there would be hope for the future of Venezuela. In summary, the prophecies of Baba Vanga for mature Nicolas and Venezuela paints a picture of challenges, immense internal conflicts, and foreign interventions, but also leave room for hope for an eventual renaissance. Time will tell how your predictions will unfold in the reality. If you like this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Taken for more content fascinating about prophecies and mysteries. Until the next, I invite you to enjoy and subscribe to our channel. Share this video with others so they can benefit too. Leave a comment below to share your thoughts and experiences. Thank you for watching and joining us on this journey. We'll see you in the next video. Blessings.